we can start by saying that Congress is going to do something about the misuse of FISA, or at least it appears that way. Speaker Johnson yesterday nixed the extension of FISA. This is the rule that we put into place for people who don't know that happened after 9/11 to root out some terrorists. And it's been misused. We had a lot of people who were saying it was going to be misused when they did it originally, and it has been misused. You can get a warrant without you do a search without a warrant. It was reported that Johnson and some other congressional leaders wanted to temporarily reauthorize, and this is called Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, and the National Defense Authorization Act. And apparently, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but the proposal move to do that got a lot of strong backlash from 54 bipartisan House lawmakers. In the House Judiciary Committee, Chairman Jim Jordan said that yesterday. So exactly what is going on with that?
Yeah, so I'm a big part of that, and so there was a working group that was put together between the Judiciary and the Intelligence Committee. We have over 40 reforms in the FISA. Jim was for it. Jim Jordan was for it until he was against it. They're doing a separate bill in Judiciary which doesn't do the reforms. And listen, it's a very complicated process, and a lot of things that are called 702 aren't actually 702. The reforms in the House Intelligence, which we have worked over 8 months working on since we came back in January putting this together. What happened to Trump last time in the election would not happen with those reforms. The one that the Judiciary Committee is passing, it'd be the same old game, same old thing. Listen, we need FISA. It saves, it keeps another 9/11 from happening, but there has to be reforms and accountability measures. It's not just reforms, but it's reforms and accountability measures.
But where's the problem here? Because Jim Jordan says it doesn't go far enough, or I know that Matt Gaetz had said something about screw this thing about making it temporary. Let's just go in and kill it altogether. So where's the problem there?
Well, first of all, Matt Gaetz has been in on none of the hearings, so he has no idea what's actually in it. And they confuse the things. Jim, I think, just got his first classified briefing on some of the stuff and the things that are there. So we've done a deep dive on this, and it's just a matter of people disagreeing. But like a Matt Gaetz, he's not even been in the hearings, and he doesn't have all the information, yet he's sitting out there spewing stuff, and he just doesn't have all the information.
Doesn't sound like the compatibility is even within the GOP has gotten any better since the new speaker came in. I guess there's still some hard feelings going there. But you're saying that this vote is going to come up and it'll be more of a temporary and not a permanent ban on FISA?
Well, no, it won't be a temporary ban. I'm telling you, people need to be really careful. First of all, it's foreign intelligence surveillance. So they're talking about spying on the U.S., which it cannot be used on. They already have to have a warrant. And so they're conflating those things. Some of the changes they're asking for is saying that a foreigner, a terrorist, and a Hamas terrorist, that they would have to get a warrant to get information on a Hamas terrorist, and even open up civil liability for the American companies who help do that. So it's really confusing, Paul, and a lot of it's classified and you can't even talk about. But listen, it has been abused in the past. The reforms that are put in by the House Intelligence Committee, they will stop those abuses. What happened to Trump would not happen again. And people disagree, but a lot of people like Matt Gaetz have not even been in the briefings to know fully what he's talking about.
What does it look like over in the Senate on this?
The Senate, I actually talked to a few senators yesterday. They're on board with the reforms that we have done. Listen, enough. Christopher Wray hates the reforms. That ought to be enough said. I mean, he hates the reforms and does not want us to do them. That ought to let you know that it is not good for the FBI to continue to abuse it as they did in the past.
Sure. We learned that there was, what was it, almost, we hear about 50%, almost 50%. Of all of the evidence out there, they showed us the other 45 or 50% that they wanted us to see during the hearings from January 6th. The 50% that they did not want us to see, apparently, it's been destroyed. Now, from my understanding on this, and you know a lot better than I do, that is a felony. So is anybody going to be brought up on charges for? And what do they? What does Benny Thompson say? Oh, my bad. We just accidentally did it. Josh Harley has this from the Senate side.
Who was fired for the lies to the FISA court for the Carter Page warrant? Who was fired for that? Anybody? Has anybody been held accountable for your institution deliberately lying to a FISA court to get a wiretap on an ongoing presidential campaign?
There is an ongoing disciplinary process with respect to individuals involved in that.
Here's the deal. You're back in front of us asking for the reauthorization of extraordinary authorities. Multiple courts have uncovered extraordinary abuses perpetrated by your agency. You are at the same time concealing information about serious allegations made against the President of the United States, even as your institution also targets his chief political opponent in an unprecedented way. Why would we ever give you the blank check that you want to continue surveilling American citizens in an improper manner? Why would we ever do that?
Senator, we're here to talk about reforms today. I did get confirmation that the query...
No, we're not. We're here to talk about the reauthorization of Section 702. Why would we reauthorize it, given your track record of abuse and illegal improper surveillance and political targeting? Why would we do that?
So, Congressman Trent Kelly, it looks like we have enough steam on the Senate side to maybe get something done on this.
Yeah, we do on the reforms, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. There was no accountability for those guys, Crossfire Hurricane, those guys who went after Trump, because there was no provisions for penalties, criminal penalties. The reforms that we have in the House Intelligence Bill would, first of all, make them sign an affidavit, okay, which makes them lying under oath. There are criminal penalties for that, so that they just don't get away and them say, well, we'll discipline our own, which we know they didn't discipline anybody. So that is exactly why we need these reforms, to make sure that when people commit bad acts, that they are held criminally accountable for those bad acts. So Josh Hawley is saying exactly what we're saying. We want reforms that put teeth in it, so when rogue people do things against citizens of the United States, there will be criminal penalties for them doing so.
If there is a foreign force out there through disinformation and everything else, and we believe there are, deep state or whatever you want to call it, trying to divide America through that process of disinformation, man, they are been successful. I mean, who thought 6-8 months ago that we would have another a fight on our hands between Palestinians and the Jewish people and the fight there? But I mean, it's permeated everything. It's gone all the way through the universities, streets of New York, the streets of Chicago, and just nationwide. People hating people, and it's just exploded. But the vote on the House floor yesterday, you got to speak to that.
Which vote are we talking about?
Oh, was that vote yesterday as far as the vote on anti-Semitism? That was in the House, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, we had several. So we had the anti-Semitism. Yeah. We also had one last week where people actually, where you had, I think, more Democrats than not voted to not to support Hamas and to not condemn what they've done. Listen, Hamas is a terrorist organization. They have raped women. They have killed children in front of their parents. They have beheaded people. They are a terrorist organization. And to say anything less than that about Hamas would just not be the truth.
There are other issues going on as far as the funding for the Ukrainian war and also the Israeli effort. What's the latest on that one, Congressman?
Well, I think there's no package. The Senate, has, and President Biden asked for a supplemental that includes all those things. I think all of those things can pass on their own, but they all need, most people are okay with funding stuff because they're tearing the Russians up over there, but they want some accountability measures to make sure that the money is being spent. Now, most people don't understand about 80% of that money is going to replenish U.S. stocks of either weapon systems or munitions, to replace those, but they have to be accounting. We need an IG in there. We did that in the NDAA.
All right, and I want to continue the conversation on the other side of this break, but what you're saying and telling us is you don't personally feel like there's enough accountability in this effort.
Absolutely. There needs to be more accountability. Okay. I actually get to see a lot of the accountability, so I know the money is being spent like it should be, but everybody doesn't get to see that, and they need to make sure, and they have to have a high level of confidence that it's being spent on the right thing.
More with Congressman Trent Kelly coming up next.